Hi everyone, it's Kerry back with you today. A little while ago I created these napkins using a technique shown to me by Mum. I'll show you how to get this effect on the napkins in just a minute, and these are created on just plain white single ply napkins. If you're in Australia, I got these from Coles. There's 100 in this packet and I think they cost about $1. But you might even be able to use, if you've been pulling napkins apart that have 2 or 3 plies, you might be able to use those other layers instead of purchasing some plain white napkins. So I wanted to create some napkins for decoupage for a nature themed journal, so I was fiddling around with some colours and I came up with these. Now I really like the way that it looks a little bit like it's eco-dyed. And then I've just added some imagery over the top using some stencils, so I'll show you how to get the background effect on the napkins, and then I'll also show you how I pop the images on the front. So a couple of things that you'll need for this technique are some napkins. I'm using Lindy Stamp Gang sprays today, and you'll also need a water sprayer. I'm also going to use a kitty lidded tray as a spray tray. This just helps contain the spray into this tray and it doesn't spread all over my desk. So to begin, I've just got a single napkin here and I'm just going to spray it quite liberally with water so that the napkin is very wet but not actually dripping. So that, and making sure that that soaks through to the middle layer of this folded up napkin. And you can do that in your spray tray. Just add a little bit more on the corners there. Now I've got some other colours in here that may activate with the spray left over from other things, but that doesn't bother me for this particular project. So I'm going to start with the Blazing Black. Now black is very dark and heavy obviously, so I'm only going to use this quite sparingly, just a little bit in opposite corners. The thing that I like about this technique is it actually brings out other colours within the colour products that I'm using. So I'm just going to add a little bit of blue here now. And then some brown. And to finish off, I've got some green here. So I will actually pop the names of the colours in the description box below. And you can see I've sprayed that quite heavily. And I'm just going to check and make sure that colour's soaking right through. Yep. Then what I'm going to do is, because I've used quite a lot of colour here and I don't want to waste it, I'm taking another napkin here and I'm going to just lightly mist this one, not as heavy as the previous one, just a little bit, and then I'm going to apply it straight over the top of the napkin in the tray and use my fingers to help soak up some of that colour. That way we're not wasting all that colour that we've already sprayed. Now if you don't want to have stained hands, I recommend that you wear gloves for this particular project. And when you peel them apart, just be careful that you don't tear them because they're very fragile. So you can see there I've transferred the colour over to this napkin now. And I'll just pop that there. Now if you've really sprayed a lot of colour, you might get 2 or 3 different layers of napkins, so I could do another one, pop that on top and keep pressing. But I want to keep this one fairly dark, so that's enough for me for this one. And then you'll need to dry these off thoroughly. So now I've got my 2 dried off napkins here, and these are thoroughly dry. If you don't dry them off thoroughly, the next step won't work as well. So these are completely dry, and I'm just going to take some water and I'm going to spray it onto my fingers and then flick it onto my napkins. And this will reactivate some of that colour and I'll get a blooming effect. So you would like lots of splashes, but you don't want it totally soaked again. So I let the water start to sit for a couple of seconds, and once I can see the colour starting to bleed out here, then I'll take my heat gun and start drying off those napkins again. So the napkin is very fragile when it's wet. I've got a couple little holes in mine where I caught it on the heat board when I was drying it. So I won't work on this piece just here, but I'm going to apply my image over here now. So I've got a stencil here and I decide where I want my image to go. Now this was actually just a test stencil, which is why it's not straight, but I'm still happy to just work with this one. And I want my image to be about there. And I've just got some Distress Oxide inks here, and I've got some makeup blending brushes. I prefer these on the napkins over the round foam tools. They're just a little bit more gentle on the fragile tissue. You can still use the round ink blending tools like this one, but rather than rubbing, I would suggest dabbing. So I'm just going to pop some ink onto my brush here, and then I'm just going to start in the middle of my stencil, gently applying. I'm not rubbing hard. The bristles are very compactly, they're very compact inside this brush, so I don't have to rub hard to get a lot of ink transferring onto the napkin. So I've just gone up the middle of my leaf pattern there. Now to give it a bit of a two-toned look and to make the tips of the leaves look a bit darker, I'm going in now with the black. And I'm sort of working from the outside in, just gently pushing or pulling the ink towards the middle of the stem of the leaf. Oops, just move that a little bit. When I take that off, I get a nice crisp image there, and you can see it's a little bit lighter through the middle of the leaf, and then the ends of the leaves are very dark. So that's how you pop the image on there. So if you wanted to add some stamping onto your napkin, I would recommend doing that after you've applied it to whatever the surface is that you're going to apply it to. So I've used a glue stick to apply some glue onto this tag, and then I've just laid my napkin over the top and smoothed it out, and then I've sat it aside and let the glue have a chance to dry. I find the easiest way to take the napkin away from the edge is to just use like a little sanding block and just run it along the edge, and the napkin comes away pretty cleanly, and then you can just use a little bit of ink around the edge of your tag. So there we go. I find if I try to cut along the edge with a craft knife, if my craft knife isn't super sharp, then I end up tearing the edge of the napkin away from the edge. So once you've got your napkin sanded away from the edge, you can just take your ink blending tool and just add a little bit of ink to the edges if you want to. So now I can go ahead and stamp on my tag if I would like to. So I'm just going to use some archival ink, and I've got a leaf stamp here. And there we go. So you can see you can stamp on there with no troubles at all. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. I'll leave links in the description box to where you can get the Lindy's sprays and also to the stencils. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.